don't do this, which is here. Enter here instead, which is this entry right there. This crossover. Welcome. Eric Muathe with Muathe.com. I greet you in the love and the light of the one infinite creator. So today we're going to be using the BANKNIFTY to study the MACD and see what we can learn from it. This is a 1 year daily, and I want to go back to a concept I've been talking about the MACD over the last couple of weeks, and it is not to make the mistake of taking every crossover, because not all crossovers are made the same. For example, there's a crossover that we can see right here, which constitutes this entry here. Now you can see what happened with that crossover. It wasn't very strong, not the most stable recovery, because we go up for a couple of days, but ultimately prices do drift down. So what I've been saying is use that high of the previous attempt to cross over. So draw a line. This is the high. Draw a line, and you want to use that next movement above the line, or where the MACD had stalled, as your better entry, because see, this is this period here, and what do you get out of it? You get a better sustained move, and actually you don't go back to this entry level right there. And so what we learn from this is when it comes to using the MACD, we should all not make the mistake of rushing in and taking every crossover we see. Now, even here, we can see that there's this period where there's a crossover. Looks like that is definitely time to get out, which is this period here. But you'll notice what happened is you get frustrated because as you see this initial move, you're anticipating more downside. But guess what? The market comes and makes a higher high, taking out your entry level. Now, what I'm saying here is after that failed crossover, now use that area right there. This is the low of the crossover attempt of the MACD. Draw your line, and next time you drop below that line, it is a more reliable entry, because this is where we see this movement here. And you see the result is a more sustained swing trade situation to the downside. Which brings me to the current Nifty situation. As you can see, this is how your MACD looks like. Do we see any crossover first and foremost? No. Okay. Secondly, it also means that we need to be patient. Why? Because if there's going to be a true recovery, it's going to look potentially something like this. I say potentially because sometimes they can be different, but more than likely, what we are going to observe in the days and weeks ahead is there's going to be a crossover, down, and then up. And the signal line is going to look something like this. So what I'm saying is the better entry, if you're looking for a more powerful recovery entry, it's going to be at the time, if and when we see movement above this area right here. And you can see what that does is it forces you not to rush and buy every uptick. A, there's no crossover of the MACD, and B, even if there was a crossover, you'd have to make sure it is lined up with other time frames. Now, remember in the previous video over the last week, I talked about crossovers when you are outside a range are more reliable. See, technical analysis is complex. We want it to be simple, but if you add the little simple things become complex. Now you can see here at the highs, we moved out of a range. So the MACD range, we can say, has been in this area here. So once we moved out of that range, which is here, the next crossover is more reliable, which is this crossover. And you can see that corresponds with the high. So there's an argument that can be made, because we are outside of the range of the MACD, that any type of crossover now of any kind is going to be more reliable. And to be honest, yes, you can use that with the understanding that it is out of the range where it has been trading for a while. This is the daily. So any crossover, now that it is out and beyond the range, is more reliable. That it would be true. And you can take up a position knowing that you'd rather enter using this previous high of the MACD down the road. Because as we established, it is not unusual that the initial breakout, or initial crossover is not reliable, as we can see here. Now, to illustrate this point even better, take a look at the major lows coming in early 2020. So major lows right here and here. So we can see that in 2020, the market was down significantly, which meant we came off the range. This was the range. So any crossover after that, coming off the range, any crossover should be reliable. Right here. And yes, in a sense, it does pin and capture the actual weekly intraday lows. But here's the issue, is even with a move off those lows, you can see we immediately come back to test the lows. So that was not a very fun swing trade to the upside. What I'm saying is wait for this high right there of the MACD. Right there is your entry, because the MACD had stalled, and now this movement right there, which corresponds with this entry right there, is a more reliable entry. And again, to summarize, I would say don't do this, which is here. Enter here instead, which is this entry right there. This crossover led to this movement down and a retest, while this crossover led to this immediate recovery, and prices have never looked back. Links are gonna be in the description. I am Eric with Muathe.com, and I leave you as I found you in the love light of the one infinite creator. Go forth rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one creator. Adonai.